This is Call with Dads, where we dive into the ups, downs, and everything in between when it comes to being a dad. Here, it's all about connecting with a community of dads who are committed to learning and leveling up as fathers. Welcome to Call with Dads. Let's talk.
Well, let's do this since we have everyone here. And I think we're all ready and rearing to go because, one, this is a topic that's going to be, it's not going to be like the most lighthearted topic, obviously, but I'm sure we'll have a good couple laughs on other issues and such here. But first off, Daniel, I appreciate you being here. We're going to get started now and just let everybody know a bit about you and about the book that you wrote, The First 5 Minutes. I haven't had a chance to read your book yet. I've added it to my list because after reading the reviews and the descriptions and things like that, it sounds like it's a very important book to have, even if for somebody like me my son's homeschooled, but I concern myself about when we're at churches or at different events. So it's, from what I looked at it, it's not just things you need to worry about as a school person, but instead of me taking up your introduction, how about you go into it a bit and then we'll start digging into whatever crazy topics and weird directions we take this.
Sure, no problem. Was with the Secret Service for 24 years. I was lucky enough to be stationed in Washington, D.C. the entire time. I didn't have to travel around the country because I was in a different division called the Uniform Division. And the reason I went with them was because they had all the specialized divisions within it. Motorcade support, the counter snipers on the rooftops, the ERT or SWAT team, canine, crime scene search. So that was why I wanted to stay in that division and was fortunate enough to stay there for 24 years, went through the ranks, ended up as lieutenant. Started with Reagan, right at the end of his term, it ended with Obama. Came down here to Florida to retire and sit on a beach. And that didn't work out because after 3 months being an alpha personality and that routine, it just drove me crazy and drove at the time, my wife crazy. And she was the one actually who said something. She said, look, she says, I saw this article and it was about a school down here in my county, Pinellas County, that fit my resume. And it was for an emergency manager with their safety and security people. And come to find out, there were no people. It was just one position. So I applied and got in and found out, because all I'm thinking about back then is, what, school? This is where people go to retire. There's no kids down here. Boy, was I wrong. It's a very dense county, very dense. Yeah. We've got over 100,000 students in this county alone, 140 schools. And that was it. It was me. There was no staff, nothing. This was, what am I talking about, back in 2014? So here you go, you got it, make our school safe. And I just took the experience from the Secret Service and said, okay, I hated sitting at a desk. And I made my goal I wanted to meet with every 140 of those principals face to face, see their schools, see what was going on. It took me a year, but I did it. And from that point on, it just, I say grew, but I was fortunate because I had people that around me in this huge warehouse was for everything from ground up building schools to maintaining the schools, maintenance, electricians, plumbers, the whole thing, blueprints, everything was in one location. And I'm glad they did it that way, because that way I could go to somebody and say, hey, why did we build the school this way? Or I need fencing here or doors there. The only thing I didn't like, and one of the reasons I left, was I didn't have autonomy. I couldn't say, fix that door, do that gate, whatever. I didn't have the power to do that. I had to go through bureaucracy of not only assistant superintendent, school board, the lawyers, all that stuff. Very slow process to get things moving. However, I just kept pushing, and eventually things did change. I know one thing that did start, and I know there are communities still that are doing this. Whenever you go into an emergency, especially an active shooter emergency, they're still using codes, which is completely wrong. They've been using codes for hundreds of years. And it's just something that if I'm a stranger, if I'm a visitor, if I'm a maintenance worker, I hear these codes. I'm like, okay, I hear a code red. Sounds bad. I don't know what that is. Use plain language. Always use plain language. We're in a lockdown, lockout, bomb threat, fire, whatever. Use common language, okay? And I try to express that, and boy, I got pushed back on that. Finally, it did finally come around that they started using plain language. Now, I know this is not the place for humor, but at the top of my head, I got to tell you a couple of stories, and I got plenty of them. There was an elementary school, and this elementary school had very nice people, and they wanted to be, very proactive in their emergency responses. So whenever they had an active shooter drill, they would go over the loudspeaker, and the code was, the pony is being delivered today. And they tell me that. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, that we don't want to scare people and the kids. So that's what we say. I said, well, if I'm a parent of school going, hey, they're being delivered a pony today. Let's get the rest of the kids. Great.
Somebody having a party, birthday party? What's going on?
I'm like, no, please don't do that. Just use plain language. These kids, they're smarter than you think. They're not naive. They know what's going on. You don't have to say a pony. Just tell them we're in a lockdown. We're hiding from the bad guy, whatever. And there was this other school. I'm sorry, some of these things come up. Not elementary school. It's a two-tiered school. It was called an open air school, meaning all in the middle was an open area, 2 floors. And the principal there liked to play games, and I say like to play games, but serious games for his people to make sure they're doing the right thing. So we had an active shooter drill, and he had drilled his people numerous times. So they knew what was going on. They were waiting for something he was going to say. So in the middle of this drill, he goes out into this area with a bullhorn. And he says, the drill's over. It's over. It's fine. Back to teaching. We're good to go. All the teachers like, no. We understand this. You're not supposed to stop the drill until they come with keys and open it up. Well, there were 2 substitute teachers. We're like, oh, drill's over. Okay, kids, back to your homework, whatever. The kids themselves were yelling at the no, it's a trick. It's a trick. We're not supposed to do that. So these kids are not naive. They know what's going on. I had 5th graders in a different school, again, 2nd floor. There were a set of glass doors that got in the second, and it was a little round. It was like 5 classrooms on the 2nd floor, this area. And when I went in there and talked to the teacher and the principal, I said, okay, when something happens, what are you supposed to do? Well, the designate is supposed to go out of the classroom and lock those outer doors, then come back in and lock their own classroom door. I say, okay, what's plan B? If you're not here or if there's a substitute, we have a plan B. The next person takes over. So as I'm talking about this, I say in front of the kids, I said, well, what if you drop out? What if you faint, freeze, whatever? Every one of those 5th graders are raising their hand. I know where the key is. I'm like, all right, let's go. I take all those kids out. I said, where is it? It's right behind the fire extinguisher in the cabinet. Go grab it. Go over there and lock those doors. And these kids are beaming. And they're out there, all of them did the lock to lock the doors. They come back in. I said, you guys are heroes. Because if your teacher drops out, you run out there, lock that door, and come back in to lock the classroom door. And it's like, these kids they want to help. They know what's going on. I mean, it's really this idea that they talk about these drills that harm kids, or they feel bad, or they're anxious, or they're stressed out. I mean, come on. When I was a kid, it was the 62 Cuban Missile Crisis. We had to go out in the hallway and duck and cover and sit there. And what are you doing? You're fooling with your buddies. All you want to do is get this over with, because you're like, it was a game to you. You're not like panicking and stressed out. So this idea that these drills somehow are stressing these kids out. Yeah, I know. Look, the entire world's not different after the pandemic and everything else that's going on. But, these kids, well, I'm sure we can get into that subject about mental health and everything with this social media that's going on, but they keep talking about how hard these kids have it. I'm sorry. My dad went through the Depression. I mean, I went through the 70s gas line crisis. I was getting ready to be, voluntold to go to Vietnam. I got guys over in Afghanistan, Iraq that have gone through the war. I mean, are you kidding me? what these kids are going through with this, with all the games and crap that they got? No, it's not that hard. It really isn't. But they make it out that that this is, oh my God, some kind of crisis for our children. Well, no, it's not.
I feel like that's the idea that our children have it harder than us. I feel like that falls under a quote from surprisingly the most insane probably person on planet Earth, currently still today, Marilyn Manson. He said there's not more crime today, there's more cameras.
Yeah.
All right.
That's exactly the issue. There's not more problems with children today. There's not more stuff stressing them out. There's more stuff telling them that there is.
Exactly.
There's also the immediate dissemination of information, which we've never had before. So if a school shooting happens in like Florida, I know right now. I have it live streamed on my phone immediately.
Right.
So it makes it seem like it's much more prevalent than what it is. Yep, yeah, exactly. And if our kids nowadays are having a harder time than we are, we're doing it to them.
Yeah.
We're making it harder. With all the stuff that we're confronting them with. I mean, we're inundating their senses with just nonsense,
No,
I think the psychology behind the students being so much more prevalent and able to, when like you were talking about how they jumped for the keys and they were like right on it, but the teachers were like lacklustering. I feel like there's like some sort of psychology behind children that they don't hold any responsibilities, you know what I mean? So their mind goes, it reverts to some sort of protection of myself and family and people around me, whereas the person that is the teacher doesn't hold responsibility for that. They hold responsibility for their position, and knowing the idea that this is a drill, I don't want to do the wrong thing and get fired. So there's no connection between this is what I need to do because this is right to protect the children. They do, I want to do the right steps. I don't want to get fired. Yeah, so there's those two separate people.
It kind of reminds me of a theme through the book Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, where he's one of the themes that they constantly refer to is that this mindset that if I don't take action in a crisis, then I can't be held liable for what happens.
Right.
And that's an absolutely absurd mindset. If we held that mindset as a race, the human race would have went extinct long ago. I mean, it's absurd, and it's being reflected in exactly what you just talked about. So these adults have all these responsibilities, all these strings attached. They don't want to make the wrong decision. The kids don't give a crap. They're just having fun. They're trying to solve the problem. They're trying to figure it out, trying to be helpful. They're trying to, do all the stuff that we just naturally do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you tell your kid to hand me that wrench over there. What's the first thing your kid does? Jumps to go get the wrench because he wants to be helpful for dad, for the authority figure that he loves. It's the same concept with the teacher. They want to be helpful. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Oh, no. No, it's fine. I was literally going to ask you, with everything said and what's I have you, it sounds like the kids know more than what the teachers do, or they have a better clue and more willing to take steps. What, like as a dad, personally, if I need to teach my son, say, and again, like we talked prior, since I homeschool, my concern's some crazy coming into the church while he's in Sunday school and going through that area. If, say, something happens, what do I teach my son if he's in a place where, or in a situation where the teacher or whoever the adult is doesn't have a clue of what to do? Like your book's talking the first 5 minutes. I'm assuming the first 5 minutes is the most critical. What do we teach our kids for that first 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, you're right. And just a little background. The reason I called it that is because FBI data, which it goes back a number of years before they get the data, your average active shooter is about 3 to 5 minutes on average for these things. So that's why I called it that. So in that I mentioned, and again, I mentioned specifically about classrooms because you're talking about an enclosed area. Churches, malls, movie theaters, grocery stores, more open areas. And like anything else, the old cliche, situational awareness. When you do go into any of these areas, restaurant, movie theater, malls, whatever, grocery store, most people, and I would say 90% of the people, if something happens, they're going to escape from where they came in. They're going to just turn. I came in there. That's where I got to get out that way.
Yeah.
So I tell most people and parents, look, when you get there, again, you don't have to be paranoid about it. Just remember where you came in, but also where are the other exits? Where am I going to get out of here if there's a fire, a shooting, whatever, and I have to escape? Just look around. Okay, I know I can get out back that way. I know the store is over that way. So same kind of deal when you go into a restaurant or a movie theater. Look for the exit signs that way. What you tell your kids, basically, yes, they're going to listen to you, obviously. You just basically tell them. I mean, look what happened. There's a bunch of stuff that's happened all the time in malls and areas where you'll have individuals that are in concealed carry, and 99% of the time, you're either going to tell them to go, to get out, or you're going to tell them to hide and just, make themselves safe before you do anything. Or if you yourself, I'm either going to take cover or I'm getting the hell out of here, one way or the other. So basically, it's just listen to their instructions. Same thing like, years ago in a house fire, you just either practice alone with the family or tell them, here's the escape route. If you're on the second floor, we're going to go that way, we're going to this way, whatever. They're going to listen to you and the directions that you're giving them. The school situation is much different because you're not under their control anymore. Whatever the law is, at the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but the school now they're the ones that control your kids. They're the ones that are going to make your kids safe, supposedly. Now, Tom, you were talking about how adults, they don't take the responsibility, just looking out for themselves. And Eric, same thing about their jobs. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of these trainings come down to that. If I could talk just for a minute about it's actually 3 types of trainings. I advocate lockdowns. I've always advocated that. And remember, they keep talking about Columbine. School shootings were happening way before that, hundreds of years, 1800s. Right. School shootings were happening for a number of years. You go back to Bath, Michigan. I think it was in the 1920s. The guy actually bombed the school and killed a bunch of kids. So they've been going on for a number of years. Lockdowns work. And the reason that lockdowns work because it's basically simple. Yes, there are things you have to think about, but it's just, number one, you keep the classroom doors locked during class time. That's a no-brainer because I got pushed back on that because teachers are like, oh, well, the kids got to go to the bathroom. They want to do that. No. So what? Suck it up. Lock the door. Yeah. No, just keep it locked because you're already one step ahead. Because in a lockdown, it's the doors locked, lights off, blinds closed, kids sit on the floor quietly. You silence your phone. You don't listen to any announcements. And you do not open that door until somebody comes with a key from the administration or police to open that door. That's it. That's all you got to do. Okay. There are trainings out there now that because administrators, principals, whatever, want to feel reactive. They don't want to be passive. A lockdown is very passive. You're just sitting there waiting for the good guys to come. That's it. There's training out there, not only called Run, Hide, Fight, but called ALICE training. It's an acronym that is more reactive. Now, you've seen issues with this. Sandy Hook, principal goes out, confronts the shooter, dead. Nashville, principal goes out, shooter, dead. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, gym teacher, confronts the shooter, dead. It goes on and on. And part of that is this training, which, I'm sorry, I'm not talking to anybody with a gun if I'm not armed myself. What are you doing? And there's people out there, teachers, principals, that'll say that. Well, I got to save my kids. Well, then you're not going home. Say goodbye to your family. You're going to do something like that. But no, it's just, yet they love this training because they're doing something. So this ALICE training, you can easily go online to find it. It's ALICE, and it's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. It was created by some law enforcement guy. I don't know what he was thinking. Anyway, this training, it's targeted. It costs money. It has gotten a bunch of civil suits against it, millions of dollars just for the drilling themselves for this type of training. And no one wants to listen. They just love this. Teachers and principals go to this. They'll come back and go, oh my God, this is great. This is the best thing ever, because that education system, it just feeds on them that, oh, now I can do something. Right. Well, it's so frustrating because you try to get it across that, no, it's wrong. You're going to get these kids in danger. Look, the alert, terrific. You have to alert. You put on the PA system, alert, lockdown, or school shooter, whatever. Second one's lockdown. Terrific. That's what we want to do in a lockdown. The I is where you get into trouble because the training tells you someone in that administration is supposed to inform the entire school where this gunman is and where they're going. I don't know. I don't know any school that does that. I mean, are we in the minority report? You can't follow. There's no technology yet that follows somebody. And even if they did, I wouldn't trust them. Hey, he's on the second floor, room 203. Okay, no, I'm not going anywhere. The C is where they really get in trouble because that's called counter. That's where they want you to either confront the shooter, talk the shooter down, whatever the hell they're talking about, but also their training, and now they say they've modified it age related. And I still don't want a high school kid doing this. If a gunman gets inside that classroom, they want the students and the teacher to throw something at them. For what purpose?
Upset them?
I'm going to throw something at a gunman, and they're going to do what? Drop the gun and give up? What are they talking about? And this training is out there.
Sorry. Don't throw that eraser at me.
Yeah, and I tell parents, you hear something about this, you immediately should have a gut reaction that there's something wrong with this. I don't want my child having anything to do with this, because you have to think to yourself, wait a minute, just a metaphor. Let's say you've got a kid who's never handled a basketball in his entire life, and you pull that kid into the gymnasium, hand him a basketball and say, go ahead, I'll give you an hour, shoot at that basket till you get it in so many times. Okay, take the ball away. Wait 6 months where that student gets no training on shooting that basketball. Then during the most terrifying experience they'll ever come across, a gunman comes into the classroom and they're supposed to precisely throw something at the gunman all at the same time.
Right.
You can't even do that in sports because it takes forever to get that mental memory. So this kind of training is just, I tell people, look, no, don't do it. The other one's run, hide, fight. And you guys probably have heard of that. It's an old DHS, Department of Homeland Security, brought it up along with the Houston Police Department, did a video on it. And basically it's a corporation. Look, if you can run, run. If you can hide, hide. If you can't, you got to, beat them up with a fire extinguisher or whatever. Well, they transferred that over to schools. So what's happening, and back to Tom's point, what's happening is they're saying, well, okay, we won't do that, but we'll give teachers options. Okay, what are the options? The options are to stay in a lockdown or to evacuate. So can you imagine now the burden on the teacher to make that life-threatening decision? Okay, here it's happening. What should I do? Should I stay because it's not, the school doesn't make an announcement like everybody evacuate. No, they put it on the teacher. Hey, you're the ones that are right there, ground floor, whatever's going on. You decide whether you evacuate or stay in a lockdown. Okay, where are you going? I'm going to take 25 to 30 kids and run, because during the drill, you're just walking calmly. We are going to panic. We're going to panic run to that exit. Well, don't you think every other classroom is doing that? And what's going to happen in that exit? They're going to pile up there like you had a fire at that place in what was it, Rhode Island, a long time ago. Just pile up.
Oh, yeah, the bar.
The other thing is you're going to have at least,
you're
going to have at least 5 or 6 kids, maybe more, who are going to freeze. Or they're going to be like, no, my daddy's a policeman. He told me we are staying here. So why are you going to deal with that? If I'm a teacher, I try to put myself in their place. Even if I'm armed, I'm staying in that classroom. Because why? And I'll play devil's advocate. Devil's advocate says, oh, no, those kids are sitting ducks. Sitting ducks. Really? No shooter in the history of school shootings has breached a locked door. And I will emphasize that. Never happened. It's not going to happen because it takes too long to bust that door open and get in. You watch Nashville shooting. There's a great video on that. That was one of the best ones out there. The shooter comes up to the glass doors, busts them out. Okay. As you see them walking down the hallway, they're checking the doors. Locked, move on. Locked, move on. Open, going in. It takes too long. They got a clock in their head. They've got an end game, whatever it is, suicide by cop, kill themselves, whatever. But that's it. They're not going to break through. All right. One other story. Red Lake, Minnesota. It was a Native American reservation. Kid there kills his grandfather, kills his grandfather's girlfriend, heads to his school. Gets to the school, kills the security guard, sees a teacher running down the hallway, runs after her. She goes into a classroom, locks the door. He hits that door 3 times with that gun. 3 times. Didn't budge. Nothing. He had to go around the corner and find a window and bust through a window and get in that classroom. So that was a perfect example that even back then, this is like 2005, these doors, these locks are pretty heavy duty.
Yeah, they're tough.
It's really something. Anyway, that's the main point of this argument that these kids are sitting ducks. They're not going to go through a locked door. I mean, even if they're targeted, you still got a file cabinet, a desk you put against that door as long as it opens in. So this idea that this knee-jerk reaction, we have to change. Oh, lockdowns, that's so old school. No, we've been doing that for all these years. We need to change. Why? It works. Everyone that does it, it works because it's in your mind. It's like I say in my book, what's called implicit memory. All I want you to do as a teacher is to go through the steps and have confidence that you're going to do it. I'll tell you what, it's really sad and it's just being empathetic. Every time one of these shootings would happen, I have a meeting with teachers at any of these schools. Doesn't matter if it's high school, elementary school, middle school, and most of them are women. And most of them, they'll raise their hand like, my husband didn't want me to come in today, and they're scared to death because they see this happening and I didn't sign up for this. As a teacher, I didn't sign up for this. So you try to calm them down, going, look, even though the media, like Tom had said, is 24 hours, bad news sells, will emphasize this. It's very rare. It is still very rare. As long as you have the training, that's what I got in the Secret Service, that repetitive training, not too much because you can't overdo it, but not so little that, I forget, we haven't done one for 6 months. I forget what to do. So the idea that you drill and train correctly, and I call it implicit memory because it's just like putting on a seatbelt or buttoning a shirt, or really do it without thinking. So that's what I want to get in this training for teachers to do what they need to do. Now, with that being said, no one knows how they're going to react in an emergency. Nobody knows. No idea. Even with my training, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm reaching for a gun that's not, oh crap, it's not there. So you don't know. In the book, I have these little credit card size quick reference cards. This one's laminated. You can laminate it in the book. Anyways, cool. I thought, okay, because I have a doctor friend, and she goes, oh yeah. She says, we use that all the time in the emergency room. Like, what are you talking about? She says, I come up with a code purple. I haven't heard that in months. I don't know. I got to look in the card. What the hell's code purple? That means? Well, I'm here because you're going to look. You're going to forget your name, what day it is. You may just freeze or blank out. You have no idea how you're going to react during a real emergency. And on here, you can look down on a lockdown and say, oh, okay, I forgot to close the blinds. Whatever it is, just something you can put on your lanyard, that you carry. So it's just something I thought about that teachers could use some kind of tool to help them because, look, I had in North County, I had a middle school that across the street from them, there was a son who didn't like his mom's boyfriend. So he decided to take a gun. Now he was outside and he shot up the house. Well, across the street is a middle school. Well, he's kind of spraying and praying. So one of the bullets, I think, hit the school. They go into a lockdown, which is what they should have done. The assistant principal there, who I knew through her husband who worked with me, had done a bunch of drills, very proactive. Everything would go fine through the drills. Everything's fine. A real event, they do an after action, which you're supposed to do after, whether it's a drill or a real event. You get together and talk about what happened. 1/3 of her teachers froze. And these are people who had gone through the drills numerous times. Froze, did nothing. So you have no idea. And that's why whenever I go to these schools, because I've done hundreds of these active shooter drills, to look for stuff that you can fix. Yeah. There's always something going to be wrong. No one runs a perfect drill, but you want to do it. So at least you can point out what's happening. Because sometimes, and I don't mean to be, a little humorous, but I'll go to some of these schools and they'll make an announcement. Half the school didn't hear the announcement. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, speaker system has been down for months. I'm like, what? And that's the questions you get because people will go, well, what happens if we can't announce? Well, guess what? You better take runners and go and pass it on from person to person. Lockdown, lock your doors. Think of something if it goes bad. Don't think technology is going to save you. So it's just something that the human factor is the biggest factor in all of this. Don't rely on technology. Just do what you have to do and think about, that's why you drill. I would ask, every quarter, at least do an active shooter every quarter. We're doing fire drills once a month. I mean, come on. When's the last time I had a fire? These schools now are so fireproof. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyway,
you touched on a kind of an important weakness in the Alice and the run, hide, fight system, right? When you were talking about these teachers, a third of these teachers froze despite constant drills. I mean, these teachers they don't have the experience, nor do they have the training to handle these extremely high stress situations. That's why you don't leave those decisions up to them. You leave the decisions up to the professionals that have been in these situations. And another thing you're kind of touching on, and you may have heard of this before, but it's a risk versus frequency. Okay, so I work in EMS fire. I'm a paramedic and a firefighter. We talk a lot about risk versus frequency, right? So I work in a huge city. So house fires are extremely high risk, but for us, they're also high frequency. That's our bread and butter. We do it all the time. It's dangerous, but we're good at it. You know, there's the bullcrap runs you go on that are high frequency, low risk, right? You're just driving someone to the hospital. The most concerning, right, is the low frequency, high risk situations, because you more than likely have never experienced it. The consequences are more than likely extremely dire. And in that situation, the best thing that you can do is have a very clear plan that removes any human error. And you make sure that all of those individuals have drilled over that exact policy multiple times over throughout the course of their employment. Right? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, honestly, but it sounds like it's not the case. It sounds like you had a lot of difficulty getting these schools to digest these concepts.
Well, look, Tom, let me tell you, when I did get in and made a reputation for myself trying to get this, look, my schools, and I don't know if it's the whole school system does this. They have, before school starts in August, a 3-day conference. All the teachers, everybody, 3 days, full days. Out of those 3 days, I got 45 minutes. That's it. 45 minutes to talk about this. And I understand, look, especially now after the pandemic, 2 years lost, all that stuff. These teachers are under tremendous pressure, not only for the grades of the schools, but the grades of the students. So we grade systems down here, school system, A, B, C, D, E, F. All right. If you're a D or an E, or an F, you're in trouble. You got to get the school grade up. Otherwise, they'll shut the school down. You're else somewhere else. Now you get the students. You got to get their grades up. Now you have the other pressure from principals and administrators saying, hey, you got to get your, S together, or, you're out of a job or whatever. We'll send you somewhere else. The union down here isn't that, it's not that, I say important. It's not that tough. It's not that strong, I should say. So anyways, what happens is with these teachers, not only have this kind of pressure, now I got to talk about, active shooters. All right. So then we go, okay, even though they're good for that, but we're going to drill. Well, we're humans. So if they find out when the drill is going to be, what are they going to do? They're going to get ready beforehand, because it has to be announced. And I argued about this over and over. I wanted unannounced drills. I wanted to see how they would react. I had an old boss when I first got on. He would just show up at the counter. I'm a gunman. This is an active shooter. I'm an active shooter. Boom. What are you going to do? Go. And, and people would just look at him like, are you joking? He's like, no, he had the power to do that. I didn't, unfortunately. So what would happen is the schools have to notify the parents. I said, great, let's do this. During that week, just say, hey, sometime this week, we're going to have an active shooter drill, and leave it at that. And then just, have a small group of people that will know the day and the time. Now, of course, it's going to get out. They're going to hear about it. But what happens is teachers are like, hey, I'm piled up with homework. I got testing to do. I got this, that, and the other thing going on. I want to get this thing over with as soon as possible, because minimum, elementary school is a little better. High school, you're talking an hour and a half, a minimum of doing this. So they're going to already have the doors locked. They're going to have the blinds down. Kids go sit on the floor. Let's get this over with.
Right.
Look, from my perspective, wrong attitude. But you can understand the human side of it and the pressure they're under to get it over with. I've had high schools, 1,500, 1,800 kids. That's going to take 2 hours minimum, because what happens is at the end of the drill, you're supposed to go and unlock the doors. And you tell them when you unlock the doors, look, you need to stay in the lockdown, because I don't want half the school up and running around. The other half are still in the lockdown. So that's why it takes so long. So then you finally say, okay, then you can make the announcement, we're back to school. But just the idea that you're sitting there And look, I've had schools where there's been police activity and they decide to go into lockdown. They'll be there for 4 hours. 4 hours. That's sitting there. What? You don't have a bathroom, nothing. That's why I tell them, I'm sorry. Make sure you got a bucket in the classroom just in case.
You ain't cool unless you piss your pants.
Thank you. Schools usually are a little better. Elementary schools usually have a bathroom for kids, but middle and high school, no way. And you know, it's odd because I like our county. I've got a rich, snobbish, white elitist North County and low income, Southern County, Middle County is about, all black and white. And I'll go to the Northern County where all the white rich kids are, and we'll do the drill. And they're grab ass and they're talking and whispering and stuff like that. And I tell you what, I had a NYPD retiree who was in there as a school resource officer, and he's hearing this stuff. And he read them the riot act. I mean, it was the greatest thing I've ever heard. I was getting chills when this guy walked in and was screaming at these kids saying, do you want me to go to your parents and tell them you died because you couldn't keep your mouth shut when a gunman was running around in this school? And I mean, you just saw the looks on their faces. And yet, when I go down to South County, the low income areas, I'd have like a perfect drill. Why? Because these kids are facing this crap every weekend with shootings and stuff going on. They're like, yeah, I know what's going on. I'm diving under the desk. We're taking this stuff seriously. So it's just this dynamic that you get in these different counties and different schools, how they run their drills. And it's just something, again, you have to deal with. But again, it comes back to the idea that, look, we don't want to make schools prisons. We don't. You still want a welcoming atmosphere for people to come in, yet you want to keep it as safe as possible. And the problem with that is a lot of these schools are like, yeah, let's put more glass up because it's contemporary, looks good, it's modern. Well, they can't do bulletproof glass. That costs millions. So I'm like, what are you doing? And the same thing with classrooms. They had, I hope they got away from this because I've been gone for a while, but they had these huge rectangular picture glass windows in classrooms. The reason they wanted them in is so people could come by and kids to observe the class. And the teachers were thankfully the ones to push back because they're like, no, it felt like they were being spied on or being evaluated through this glass. And I'm like, well, who gives a crap about a door? Just bust the glass and get in and shoot kids. I mean, what are you doing? So it just the common sense a lot of times in the education area. And boy, I tell you, police and education is like oil and water. I don't know if Tom's run into this with different dynamics of different industries, but they just don't get along. They don't think the same way. And we're thinking about protecting and reacting and stuff. I know they're thinking about something else. I don't know, but it was just something that was frustrating.
So question, I'm a pretty pro-gun person. I have multiple guns. I got a concealed carry, even though in the state of Florida you don't need one. I've had it for years prior to them doing that vote recently for it. I'm all about people protecting themselves and keeping guns. This topic, I'm still like, I don't really know. I feel like it would be a good thing, but I also feel like there's a lot of people that are, sorry for the words, but effing idiots. What do you think, like, if teachers got guns and then were like mandated, not with the students as drills, but as like a team, like they maybe take, say there's 25 teachers in the school, they take 5 and break them up into 5 sections. And this weekend they go, this weekend they go, this weekend they go, and they have paid for, shooting training and active shooter training for the teachers and those 5 teachers only every other weekend or every couple weekends or once every quarter, once every 2 months or whatever the case is. But they all have, they're all armed. How do you think that would affect the schools? Do you think it's even viable or even reasonable? Would it be helpful at all? What's your take on the idea?
The question comes up a lot of times. Let me get back to that.
I'm like, I don't know on that one still.
Just a minute. Let me get back to that. I advocate more along the lines of using your budget for school resource officers, for armed school resource officers. Luckily, in Florida, they did pass legislation along those lines to have every school, even elementary schools, with armed resource officers. Now, with that being said, we saw what happened in Margie Stoneman Douglas. We saw what happened in Uvalde. So people get fearful, like, these guys what are they doing? Why are they waiting? Why aren't they going in? Look, 99.9% of the police out there are going to do the right thing. I got the training. All other police departments get the training. Even if it's one person, you go. You're going to go. Okay. So that being said, I would rather use the budget towards that. However, here in my county, the Pinellas County Sheriff did say he wants to advocate for teachers to have the right to get training area in the classroom. Now, I'm on the fence about it because being former law enforcement, if I'm responding to this active shooter situation and I know there's a teacher in there somewhere that has a concealed carry, has a weapon, how do I know who's the good guy and the bad guy? I have no idea. If I see a gun, I'm shooting them. I don't know. What are they going to do? I'm a good guy. How do I know? Are you going to wear some kind of vest or some kind of something? Are you doing that when it happens? It's like, it's a little too scary for that to happen. However, if I'm a teacher there, being former law enforcement or former military, I'm like, hell yeah, I want to carry my gun because I want to protect the kids and myself. So it's this real dynamic. What I want to move to, and this happened in the Secret Service also, a lot of it's about perception. And by that, I mean, I'll give you a little example. Let's say you got two houses in a neighborhood, a very safe neighborhood. One of the houses has an ADT sign out front, ADT security, and you can see the camera, whether it's fake or real, don't know. Next house next has nothing, nothing. If I'm a burglar, come up and I see that, and I'm like, well, where's my place? I'm going over here because I know there's nothing there. Same thing with the school system. If they put out here in my county and said, and the media got a hold of it, hey, Pinellas County has said they're going to train teachers to arm themselves. Whether it happens or not, if you put it out there, if I'm a shooter, I'm like, well, there's a possibility that they could have guns. I'm going to go to this other county over here and create havoc. So I'd rather see that than have teachers armed. Now, Utah, Texas, there might be some other states that are allowing this, and their teachers are armed in the schools. I'm waiting for data from that coming back on, has there been incidents? Have the kids got a hold of it? Has there been a shooting where somebody shot themselves in the foot or whatever? I'd like to hear the data on that and then make a more informed decision. But right now, no.
What about like crowd disbursement stuff or like riot stuff? Like what if like hypothetically
non-lethals
they put like non-lethals and I don't mean like rubber bullets and like death like CS gas or something, I'm talking like what if they put like the little sound emitters, like the little ones that are real small, they put them all along all the hallways and in all the classrooms. It's not gonna hurt nobody. But what happens if they put a bunch of strobes everywhere and a bunch of them little sound emitters everywhere? And if something like that were to happen, maybe there's like an O button, and somebody's like, "Pow!" It smacks that button, and the whole thing, the whole building, school tip to tip, just goes under this flashing lights and beep 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 for the whole just and so loud, everybody's like, "Oh my god!" Well, like, what if that happened? And even if it was some like a smoke, like just non-lethal smoke, just steam or whatever. I feel like that would be a deterrent.
It would. You can utter what if this kind of stuff to death. However, more than likely, when there's something like that in the school, guess what? Those kids are going to find a way to set it off.
Set it off.
That's why that's what we're if they're not on your hip all the time, the kids are going to know what desk they put it in, how to break the lock. You get into areas where these kids are not dumb and they're looking for things to get themselves in trouble. So I kind of avoid that stuff. Again, it's still the human factor. Look, there are plenty of apps out there and companies out there that will give you an app to take your phone, press a button, boom, go into a lockdown, alert the police, whatever sounds.
Right.
However, more than likely, it's going to break down. I've had it happen. I've had it where it was supposed to be on Wi-Fi, didn't work, LTE, then it dropped out, 5G, it dropped out. Half the school had it, the other half didn't. Teachers were complaining, I don't want this on my phone. I don't want the school phone. It's like, on and on. Yeah. It's still the human factor. Technology helps slightly. I do like cameras that look out into the parking area. There is, so far, AI technology. It's a company oh no, I can't remember what the hell it's, Zero Now, like Zero Eyes, something like that. That will, if, again, it's a big if the gun is exposed, they can see, I think they said 100 feet away from the school, they can see that that person is carrying a weapon. However, if it's concealed, they don't. But so it's not there yet. But there is technology with existing cameras, which is kind of neat. You don't have to put in new stuff. With existing cameras, they can see which, okay, you've got a little bit more of a warning. Okay, you know, you can lock down whatever. It's not there yet where if it's concealed. So it's coming. But technology has always a chance of breaking down. It always does at the worst possible moments. And I'm not going to depend on that. I'd rather have, you know, the human factor deal with this stuff, because even the human factor can break down.
I've seen other ones, like what about maybe a little bit more simpler technologies? You know, I've seen certain, like, and most of them are just silly TikToks or Facebook reels or nonsense that I've seen. But I mean, what if, you know, the ultimate goal is prevention, but hypothetically speaking, it happens. You know, what happens when it happens? There's no saving those first initial people. The goal now is to save more life and stop more life from life loss. So what happens if something like that happens and the whole school gets some sort of alert or whatever? So the teachers have like some sort of like almost like a shade, but it's made out of like a thin Kevlar that can stop strays or whatever. And the whole like the hallway, say the hallway is on this side of the classroom, and this side of the classroom is exiting the building. So there's no point in putting it over there because the guy's in the building, right? So what if there's just something, they go over there, kind of like the cages that they close stores on. They just go and they flip the buttons real quick and they grab it and sling it down and flip the locks, and this whole side of the classroom is now just blocked, and they locked and they just stay where they're at. You know.
Yep. Yeah.
I feel like those can be fairly cheap. You know, they'll be expensive, obviously, but they won't be super light emitting system with AI. You know, it'll just be like done.
You're thinking too much in the future. There are products out there, a lot of products, and when you go to these school safety conferences, the products out there are just mind-boggling. You've got stuff, everything from wedges that can go on the door on the inside, that will go across.
Elon Musk robots.
You've got, yes. Like you said,
school resource robots.
Citizen comply.
On wheels. You've got the bulletin boards, the whiteboards. They've got those now. You can shift over in front of the door that are.
Oh, those are cool. Yeah.
Oh.
You've got all of those. The problem is, if the fire department, the fire inspector is not going to go for it. The only reason behind that is you need, and Tom can probably evaluate this, and in the state of Florida, all you need is a two-step process to unlock a door. One step is unlock it, second step, open the door. If it goes to a three-step process, they disagree with that, because their feeling is if there's a fire and you're crawling on the floor and you're blinded by smoke, you're reaching up looking for a third device to unlock, to get out of that classroom. And they're like, no, no, we're not going to do that. Now, technology may catch up where things will be automatic somehow by swiping or a key card or something where you can get out. But it's the idea that if a child has to do this, not the adult, let's say the adult's passed out and the child is trying to get out of that classroom, and they've got 3 steps to go through, take this wedge out or this tape like you're talking about. It's like, no, they're going to die. So
the fire department needs like ejecto walls. So like if the door's blocked, there's like a button. They go and smack the button, and there's like a certain square on the exit side of the building where it just C4 built into the wall just blows it out that way, and there all the kids can go running.
This is like the school of the future, man.
I was going to say, Mr. Pancake is definitely living in the future here.
Talking about the future, I have a school teacher friend of mine who actually taught my son, who's retiring this year. And we had talked a little bit about that, about what happens at schools with these shootings. And she said, look, 5-10 years from now, more than likely robots are going to be teaching our kids. What's the reason to have humans do it? I mean, you have these robots teach these kids. And boy, I tell you, you don't want to mess with a robot if you're a gunman. Forget about it. So
Right, you can't
that happens, fine. I mean, that will at least eliminate that part. But then you're thinking to yourself, well, why even send my kid to school? Because, they could just do homeschooling like you do. But, a lot of people want their kids to be social and all this kind of stuff.
See, my kid goes.
Well, they want it to be easy. It's not that they do want their kid to be social, but they want their kid's education to be easy. That's why they send their kid to school.
Trust me.
See, my kid goes to school, so a lot of these thoughts that I've talked about with you, I have them every day. My kid, granted, doesn't go to a public school, and the only reason my kid even goes to school outside of homeschool is because of the opportunity we have with this very specific school. It's, I'm not going to say names and stuff because, it will bring up my location and all that stuff, but it's a very specific school that's like number 1 or 2 in the country, and it does this back and forth between 1 and 2 in the country. It's like one of the best schools in the entire country. And their style of education has proven back to back over and over again. And many people, you go through all the history of like the most famous, educated, most billionaires, all these people, and you're like, oh, what type of school do they go to? And they're like, classical Latin education. I'm like, well, so it makes sense.
Right?
It shows in the numbers and how they operate and do things. They have different procedures. I mean, they don't have just armed guards running around, like this, but they have a huge gate and fencing around the whole thing. That's not just like chain link fence. They have like huge like fencing that's wrapped in giant trees. They have special buildings that are designed for special escape. All the buildings are all separated, so it's not one big building. And all the teachers are all like educated on stuff like that. Come on, sorry, but they take active measures outside of what the public school does because they can. I mean, it's theirs. You know what I mean?
They have the money.
The other thing that the school does is they make it a blatant, obviously big point, and they put it real big on their website. It's like, we refuse all government grants, federal, state, city, county, anything, no funding whatsoever, zero from any government entity whatsoever. And that's, to me, that's exactly what I want, because
they have autonomy.
When you put that government in there, that's when things like you were talking about that 3-step. Well, how do they, the teacher can't take, and the school can't take simple measures such as having that thing to shove in front of the door, because all those doors used to have those thin windows, in the public schools. You can't have a thing to shove in front of the door in case of that, but in case of school shooting, because possibility of the bureaucracy of a fire chief getting mad that there's now a 3-step like that. That to me is like, give me a break. That's a bunch of BS that they go through for bureaucracy that this private school doesn't have to deal with. They don't deal with it, because the government doesn't tell them what to do.
Let me ask you, if you talk to your kids, how do they handle their emergency procedures? What do they do for active shooter?
I haven't really gotten too in depth to it. I definitely need to. I've read on their website and stuff like that, and talking to them, they're pretty adamant about a few of the things that they do. I'm assuming that they do have more in-depth emergency procedures. They just don't advertise it. You know what I
mean? But you do need to ask your kids because again, if they're evacuating, find out why. Why are they out of the school instead of being in a lockdown? If you got
my daughter's teacher, she was in the military, not anymore. Her husband is actually special forces, so I'm sure she's well trained.
You would hope she at least has an idea.
Right.
I do have to say, Dan, like this is obviously it's an extremely complicated issue, like most of these issues are. And it's easy to kind of armchair quarterback, but I have to say that I like the simplistic approach that you take. The idea of, listen, we've got these tried and true methods that are data proven. We know that lockdown works. We know it's effective. We know that it works best when we do it this way. So that's how we're going to do it. And if there's anything else that we want to consider, it's going to be considered on a case-by-case basis. It's going to be enacted in a district that's willing and also financially capable of enacting it. And then we're going to monitor it. We're going to collect data, and then we're going to take that data and use it to influence policy across the country. It's a really simple, streamlined process, and it seems like,
I agree.
I mean, obviously there's the human error. There's also, people obviously are money seeking. So there's these people that create these programs and, with money in mind, as opposed to school safety. There's so many variables, right? I mean, even when you talk about like these fences and, no windows and all this stuff, it's like, yes, also we have to consider the aesthetics, right? Because we know that aesthetics affects the mood within the school. It affects the way in which the children learn. It can't look like a prison. Just like you said, we don't want our schools to be prisons, right? So it's like this fine balance between, okay, well, Jordan Peterson talks about it, right? In his book, 12 Rules for Life, he has a chapter on don't bother kids while they're skateboarding. And he talks about how they had this beautiful structure, and the kids would skateboard in the area, and they would grind their skateboards on like the edges of the stone structures, and it gave it this really cool, like, weathered look, and it was like a really elegant appeal, and everyone would gather around there. And some administration got upset that the kids were skateboarding, and so they started putting metal spikes all along the edges of the concrete so that you couldn't grind your skateboard. And then everyone just stopped going there, because now it just it wasn't appealing anymore, and it's like defeated the whole purpose of having it in the first place. So so I digress, but there's so many variables to consider that the simplistic process that you take is intelligent. It's the best option to take. Simple, straightforward, data based,
Yeah. I agree with that. Simple, because there's the hard truth of the fact that when someone decides to become a school shooter and walk into a school, unfortunately, more than likely, there's going to be loss of life. A couple of them. That's the hard truth. It's going to happen. So the goal in those instances isn't to stop those first 5 from dying. The goal is to stop from after the 5 from dying anymore. So that simple effect of just shut down, lock down, stay in place. Hopefully the police can handle it and we can get this over with. Because like you said, and that's a very true factor, the psychology behind someone when they come in as a school shooter to want to shoot up a school, they're not going to like actively be like, oh, look, that classroom is clearly hard to get into, so I'm going to try that one more. No, they're going to go check nope, check nope, check nope, like you said. And if it's open and unlocked and easy to get into, they're going to get into it. They don't really care about this locked room because it's too much of a pain to get into and deal with. So that simple approach, just lock down, shut down. And that was why I brought up those simple things like block that side of the classroom. Simple, effective. It's, even like you said, the thing where they just put that thing in front of because really the only side of most classrooms is that crack window, and so just right in front of that little thing so the bullets can't come through. The rest is by proxy bulletproof because concrete. So.
Well, remember, and I'm sure you folks already know this, the majority of the school shooters are either former students or current students at that school. Right. So where they're leading now is, yes, the protection factor is important, but now what luckily is going this way is what called threat assessment teams. They'll get together with their principal, assistant principal, either a school psychologist, nurse, whatever, and you will have a file. I'm sorry, that's the way it works now. Meet once a week, and you'll have a threat assessment file. And this file is going to be on kids that have either made threats, former threats, whatever. They've got writings, they've got something. And hard to say, but you're not snitching. But if I've got a kid who's looking at his friend saying he's completely changed, there's something, he's dressing weird, he's talking weird, and have that child talk to a mentor, a teacher, somebody, and say, look, there's something wrong with Johnny. I don't know what's going on. Just the past few weeks, it's been wrong. He's not snitching. You got ownership in that school. You want to keep everybody in there safe. You have to say what's going on. Yeah. Is it the old cliche, see something, say something? Yeah, it still goes. Because how else are they going to find out? Because if teachers are looking at this going, something wrong with Johnny, and it just raises up and the parents go, nothing wrong with my kid. If I got students saying that themselves and going to a mentor, it's going to take a lot more power in order for this threat assessment team to get together and do this every week, because you got to stop it ahead of time. That's the only way this is ever going to stop, and you got to stop it ahead of time. But kids acting crazy, and look, this is not something a kid wakes up one day, grabs a gun, I'm going to go shoot up a school. It's months and months of planning. A lot of them believe in some kind of Columbine freaking cult that they follow because they want numbers. They want to emulate this and make themselves famous. So this takes months, and they've got drawings about internet. Now, yes, does it get into the area of civil rights? Of course it does. You're not going to go in and you go into that kid's internet or his email, postings. You may be able to if the threats get high enough, but you can't go into their backpack or locker. This gets into areas where it's like, okay, safety or civil rights. It gets into a real
a lot of generic citizen rights and civil rights and stuff really don't come into play for the most part until you become an adult. When you're a child under the authority of parents or students and stuff like that, you do. I definitely believe in all citizens have rights and all human beings have rights, but there are certain rights that are just kind of like, if your kid is in a school connected with other people, still a child, not capable of making their own decisions on a lot of stuff, and B, they're in that position, in that school, under the authority of their parents, the teachers, and the school. So it's like joining the military. You have rights in the military, but you knew when you went into the military, you signed that paper, you gave up your right to certain things. Some you didn't. There are certain rights that are inalienable per God. You can't take those rights away. And it's not because someone takes away, it's because it's just how your body's designed. You can't make somebody think something. It's just not how it works. So there are some rights in the military that they can't take away. That's impossible. But when you sign it, you know what you're signing. You did that. You said it first, and you signed and said, I give up this rights in order to serve my country, get paid, get free college, or whatever the case is. It's the same concept of a school. In addition to they're adolescent children.
Right. No, so, I agree. And I ask also in the book, your middle and high schoolers, the ones that do want to go into military or in law enforcement, to help out. Look, it's your school. Even if you got school resource officers, you can walk around that school and just check doors and windows. That's it. Because I guarantee you, there's going to be a door open. There's going to be a door wedged open. I can go today to any high school I've got. I've got 12 high schools. I'm going to find a door wedged open. And don't you think somebody observes that? Somebody's looking at that. Somebody knows all the procedures. I know that door is going to be open. How the hell do you think Cruz got into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas? That kid knew every gate of that school. He knew the whole layout of where they were going and what they were doing and got in there. That school had 3 floors. And he just had open access to shoot everything he wanted. So this idea that, the kids are supposed to have ownership. You see them at athletic events and everything, all this stuff, they have ownership. Well, take ownership with the safety also. Get on a committee. Right. Walk around with your school resource officer and just check on things. They can't check everything. I mean, nowadays, high schools are like college campuses. I mean, there's acres to cover. You've got, golf carts just to get around, for God's sakes. So, I ask that these schools or these kids take a step forward. Don't go into this thing of, the gun control and all this. No, that's just BS. You're not going to get anywhere with that. If you're in that school, make your school safe or safer than you think. If you got kids coming from other schools, because what's happening more so now, and everybody focuses on active shooters, what's happening now is just the actual weapons that are showing up in school. Knives, guns, clubs. And for whatever reason, it's because these kids are being bullied 24 hours a day with bullying. They're in a gang. They're curious about it because you've had elementary school kids bring guns in. They're threatened. They want to feel safer. They'll have something with them to bring into the school. So that's what's happening more often, that there's weapons in the classroom being brought in. And they're going to get in this one way or another, because if a door is wedged open, their buddy will let them in, or they're out for a smoke, or they're getting a pizza delivery or whatever. Look, I had one high school that I had to go to. My superintendent said to me, you got to go to this high school. There's something going on up there. And it was a school of about 1,500 kids, big school. And it was in North County. So I go up there, and the complaint is that they weren't as safe as they should have been. So I go there, and normally we all have to wear a pass with our picture on it. So I hide that. I got a baseball cap on. I'm walking in, and I tell you, anybody could walk in any high school nowadays and not be stopped. It's kind of sad, but that's what happens. Weird. Here I am with the hat on and stuff, and I get into the school and I'm walking around. I'm there literally for half an hour. Now I'm walking with purpose. I'm not acting really strange or anything, but I'm walking with purpose, like I got something to do. I had a rolled up piece of paper in my hand. Everybody I see, kids, teachers, hey, how you doing? How's it going? They don't know me from
Yeah.
Adam. I'm a stranger walking around their campus. Finally, I got so pissed. I get to the back of the campus, and there was this room that was all glass where these girls were doing the twirling stuff, the whatever they do for these sporting events. So I'm pretending that I'm taking pictures of them, right? Still nobody's stopping me. So I'm like, this is crazy. I got to talk to somebody. So I go back in through the school, and it's about 11:30, almost close to lunchtime, and everything's breaking up. And it's a big school where it's like kids are crossing this way and that way. And I see an assistant principal kind of on an angle to me who I had met previously. He glances over at me, and I just keep my head down. And I'm going. I'm just going to walk purposely. Well, he starts angling towards me, right? I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. And he comes up and he says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm looking for my car. He goes, and it completely threw him off. He said, your car? I said, yeah, I parked it out here somewhere. I got turned around. I don't know where the heck it is. And he just kind of stalled because he didn't expect that answer. He says, your car? He says, well, what are you doing at this high school? I said, oh, I really like high schools. I said, I just come and see high schools, and I like to walk around and stuff. In fact, I was just in back there, and there were some girls out there with twirls, and I was taking pictures of them. Wham! He grabs onto my arm, and he goes, you're coming with me. And it was the greatest response. So as we're walking out, I flipped my badge out, and I said, yeah, I know you. I said, I've met you before. He's like, what are you talking about? He was so shocked. I said, I told him the whole story, and I'm throwing out names and stuff. He's still not believing me, right? So we get out the gate, and finally he calms down, and he goes, oh, the superintendent so-and-so sent you? I said, yeah. I said, what the heck's going on here? I was in there for half an hour. What are you doing? Well, of course, now the blame game starts. He says,
of course.
Well, I'm not the guy who wrote the safety security measure, because high schools normally have like 4 assistant principals. He says, a principal so-and-so wrote that up. I said, well, I'm here talking to you, and things are messed up. I said, I got to report back. Now he just turns into a ghost. He's like, oh. So there's a huge gate. And not only there's a gate for the a car to come in, but there's also a gate for students to exit. It's not an entry gate, because entrances should be to the lobby only. While we're standing there, a kid comes up with a backpack, throws it over the fence, hits the lock, opens the door, walks in. And I just looked at him and I said, really? Really? And he just is like, I don't know how that happened. I said, you're kidding me. These kids know all the tricks, how to get into the school. Is no one watching this? So he just lost it. And I had to go back and report it and all this stuff. But it was just, and that was just one school that I just, out of the blue, showed up because I knew there were issues there. And that could happen at any of these. I went to an elementary school. This really bothered me. I was watching this school. What was happening was they had an area in the back that was where they drop off supplies for the kitchen, all supplies. And the gate, what they did was they took the lock, but they didn't lock it all the way. So they left it unlocked. The lock was on there, but it wasn't latched. I said, I'm going to watch and see if they're going to latch that lock. No, they wouldn't, because they had one head plant operator. He ran the whole school by himself. It was just him. So wherever he was, he had to run back to open that gate for the delivery and then go back to what he was doing. He's like, how the hell with that? I'll just tell them, take the lock off and come on in. I'm like, you are kidding me. So I said, okay, let's fix this. So I went in, walked in, sat on a picnic bench. Now, I'm in an elementary school, which you would think the level would be a little bit higher for some strange guy. Sitting on his parking bench, everybody, hey, how you doing? Hi, kids are waving, teachers are waving. I'm nobody. I'm sitting on this bench. Now, next two benches over is a parent with her child eating something. Hi, everything. I got no pass. I got nothing. Again, I'm sitting there for 20 minutes. What, waving, but what, nothing. I go in finally to the principal. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? She's like, well, what happened? I said, oh, this, and that. Oh, no. We tell all my teachers that they're supposed to tell people that don't have passes to report to the office. Well, that didn't happen. So it's just something that someone there has to get in your head. And I understand it. No one likes confrontation. No one does. No one likes to deal with that. You got some strange guys sitting there. You got more of the time majority female teachers. They're not going to want to. You don't have to confront the individual. Sir, I noticed you don't have a pass on. Did you know you needed to go through the office to get a pass? And if they're being belligerent, fine. Now you get a hold of the principal, the school resource officer, somebody that's got some kind of authority. And you'd say, can I show you where the office is? Come on, we need to get you a pass. No big deal. Not confrontation. You're just asking them. You need a pass. You need to go back in. I don't know who you are. You need to be checked in the office.
I mean, even so, she could always just be like, hey, that guy don't got a pass. Can you go
talk to somebody? Tell somebody, who is this individual? Because you got these little kids. And I swear to God, I've got another rich county where I live. I guess it's very rich. They got a lot of private schools. And there's one school over here that is public, but people moved to the community to be in this school. What they were doing is, and this I agreed with to a point, at the beginning of school year, as you know, for elementary, for kindergarten, for first, second grade, they allow parents to come into the school with their child and take the child all the way to the classroom. I get it. That shows the kid where it is, where they got to go. Here you are, all set. After 3 or 4 days, normally the kids are like, Dad, Mom, I got it. Okay, I'm good.
Right.
No, this school allowed it year round. So now I got parents coming into the school without being checked, no pass, nothing, leading their kids to classrooms. I'm like, what the hell? So I try to explain to them. We had this huge meeting after school. It was at night. I was getting letters and emails, like vile stuff, that I wanted this stopped. I said, after 3 days, there's no reason for parents to go into the classroom. So they just were not believing this. Oh, no, I moved here for this purpose. I moved here so I could have access. You can have all the access you want. Go to the front desk, give me your ID, and you get a pass. You don't just walk into the school, because even the principal is frustrated. She's like, what if I have an emergency? I have no idea who's in the school. So it finally came down to, I had these 2 parents sitting in the front row. I said, do you know each other? Well, yeah, just to when we bring our kids to school. I said, so you have no idea what either of these individuals are doing outside of the school? Well, no.
Right.
Okay, would you trust this individual to come into school and possibly berate your child, or say something to your child, or make some remarks, or even touch your child? Well, no. How do you know? How do you know what they're doing? I have no idea what they're doing. They could be hiding in the bathroom, for God's sakes, taking pictures of kids. I have no idea. I don't trust anyone. Yeah. So this one, finally, they came around and said, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So it was like, and this happens, I'm sure, across the country, where you've got parents that are allowed in, or Uncle John, or Uncle Joe, or the next door neighbor, because they didn't check anybody. If that kid comes in with somebody they trust, they got free access to the school. Now what? So that had to stop. Oh my God, that was just unbelievable.
That's one thing I know, that because that's one thing we discussed with the school that my daughter goes to. So the way the school is designed, there's one entrance into the front of the school, and there's one administrative building, and the rest of the school buildings are in the back behind it. So you can't get to the rest of them. Like if I were to just be a stranger and walk into the school, I can't get to them without going through that main front entrance, which is monitored constantly, because there's, like I said, there's not just 4-foot or 6-foot chain link fencing. There's like 12-foot metal pole fencing that's like monsters. You're not getting over it unless you're like against Donald Trump or something. Over that wall, you're not getting over it. Not at all. But anyways, so you go in through that front main thing, and then there's that big administrative building. And I've actually done it myself, and not knowing, when my kid first went there, went in there, parked, and just kind of walked around to go to the gymnasium, and 15 people are like, hey, you, what are you doing? Instantly, within minutes, because all the classrooms, the way they're set up too, is the doors, are out, and they can see everything. So there was teachers, as soon as I was walking around, they were busting their door open, hey, you need help? Instantly, immediate. So that's one thing I know that they do very well. They're on it when it comes to strangers. I was like, oh, my kid's so and so, and they're like, you need to go to the office right now. I was like, okay. I went to the office, and when you go to the office, there is no pass. There is no authority given to nobody. You don't go on the school. They bring your kid to you. And if there's a question or anything like that, you can ask the question, and they will bring it. They will take it to the teacher and go ask the teacher.
That's
You
what
do
we
not. You stay where you're at.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. And
Yeah.
I agree because, again, we go back to what's called a multi-layered approach to security. You start with fencing. All your doors are closed except you have that one entrance. When you get into that lobby area, you're stuck in there until you're access to go in. Otherwise, you go right back out. Just have that one entrance.
Yeah.
So it works
Now,
out.
like, can I get in if I wanted to? Obviously, it's like Tom said, there is some sort of connection to the aesthetics of the building and how the property is laid out for the children and so on and so forth. If I wanted to, could I? Probably, but it would really take a serious effort. So some strange person walking in the front door and just walking down the aisle to go start something. Oh, it was like immediate. They were like on me like a bunch of flies. Like, what are you doing? Who are you? Where are you at? Why are you here?
Good.
And then as soon as they found out who I was, they were like, "Oh, okay, it doesn't matter. Go to the office right now." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
So Dan, does the data show that there is an issue at all in the United States with like these kind of intermittent, like low risk, I guess, type threats, like weird people walking around the school that don't really have any violent intentions? They're just up to no good, right? I mean, as opposed to like an actual armed shooter, right? That's premeditated. Is there any data to support that we're failing on that front, on the just general weird people front?
There's a guy named David Reedman. He's on LinkedIn, and he's the data guy. And he'll come out almost every day with all kinds of data on whatever subject you're talking about. And he focuses on active shooters and weapons in the schools and that kind of data. I haven't seen data on actual threats or the type of threats or the type of people that make these threats, how that's categorized and put into a data. I'm sure it's all very local, done by the states. And again, I want to say one other thing that kind of little off the subject. This industry itself of school safety and being, you're a professional or an expert, it's unregulated. There's no certification. There's no training. There's no, basically a bachelor's or master's degree to be in this industry. Anyone can call themselves an expert. Most of the time, these experts, so-called experts, are selling a product and they're backed by that product. That's how they get to these conferences and sell this product, even though they're talking about safety. But in the background, it's like, well, who's paying you? Oh, it's company
like the medical industry.
It's company so that makes this product. They won't talk about it, but it's in there in the background. So that's a bad thing. I don't want the federal government involved. It should be up to the states and the local counties how they deal with this. But we always tell principals and even parents, check out who these people are that are selling this product with whatever guarantee they're making. And the other thing is, and especially on LinkedIn, because I've been in LinkedIn jail a couple of times, you'll have people on there that will try to sell something immediately after an incident. Now, for me, immediately is like within 1 or 2 days. If I've got people that are grieving by some active shooter, and I got some jerk that gets on there and said, basically reading between the lines, if you used our service, this never would have happened. Like, whoa, what? This is your business model? This is what you're going after? It's, the Andrew case, lawyers that go after, and yes, I understand there are tragedies. And there are marketing companies that go after something after a tragedy. It's just human nature. And that's how you make money, to go after this thing and warn people, hey, this wouldn't have happened if you used us. But you don't do this 1 or 2 days after these people are grieving. You're going to make it even worse if they're thinking to themselves, gee, if I used ABC, my son would still be alive, or my daughter. That is an absolute wrong approach to any of this stuff. So I always advise, look, check someone's background, find out the resources, look for them on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, and find out what the hell is going on before you buy whatever product is they're selling. I always mention my mentors are Kenneth Trump, who's no relation to the president. He just got his PhD. He's been in the industry for like 40 years. The guy is on top of all this stuff, been in front of Congress and everything, always got the right ideas. Another one is Michael Dorn. He was a former Georgia State police officer. He runs a company called Safe Havens International. And Safe Havens International, they're the ones who have done the research on this drilling and training. They've done so much research. They've had people go out to schools and done research on Alice, on run, hide, fight, on lockdowns, and what works best for all these situations. And they've come up with some stuff. And they were the ones who have the data on how these some of these industries have gotten sued civilly just for drilling on some of this stuff. So those are the two that are my mentors, and I always go back to on this kind of stuff. Now, you've got other people out there you're going to see on LinkedIn that have been on there a number of times, and it's almost too much because they're constantly talking about it. Look, I don't talk about this 24 hours a day. I don't have a website. This is not my business. I'm not backed by anybody, sponsored or promoted by anybody. I wrote the book, which, again, we'll go a little bit back to that. It's only 77 pages long.
Yeah. Honestly, you're not backed by anybody, and all that stuff that you're talking about, you're not backed by anybody, you're not paid by, you have no business, you make no money of it. That makes your opinion, in my eyes, way more to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am somebody that does not follow authority. I don't say your master's degree makes you a specialist or somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Just because you have a degree or you're backed by so-and-so corporation doesn't make you anything. You know what I mean? Doesn't make you a specialist. Results make you a specialist.
Yeah, right. I agree. Thank you. But I want to mention the book that, again, it's a short book. You can read it about an hour and a half. I didn't want something with 203 pages that's going to sit on a shelf just collecting dust and a lot of edge-speak that they could talk about. It's something very simple. I talk a lot, again, about implicit memory, and I'm sure Tom knows about this. If you train enough, it's going to just come naturally. That's what you do. I mean, the one thing I found about the Secret Service, even though you didn't particularly like training because you had to get up early in the morning. Oh, we got to go through this again. But it becomes a muscle memory where, we had to qualify for weapons every month, once a month with the weapon. We had to qualify. And it just becomes rote, what you're doing with your muscle memory. So that's what I try to get across to teachers in this type of training. But anyway, like I said, I'm not on here to sell the book. And you want to buy it, fine. If you don't buy it, that's okay too. I'm not there promoting that. It's more about the awareness of parents, and again, especially dads who want to protect their kids, sons and daughters, and talking to them and asking, how are you doing your emergency procedures? What is happening when you do an active shooter drill? And then just get that red flag if there's something that I don't know if I agree with that. How are you doing it? You're leaving the classroom. You're throwing things at a gunman. Right. You need to find out what's going on and talk to the school. Now, the pushback is that, look, you can go in front of the school board. You got 3 minutes, probably a page and a half you can get through. If that doesn't work, you got to start talking to your legislatures and say, look, I don't agree with this. I mean, I really don't agree with them. You're pulling themselves out of the classroom, but because sometimes you can't afford it, or you just don't want to do it because the kid enjoys going to school there. So just find out what they're doing, because I tell you, schools, they'll circle the wagons. They're going to circle the wagons. They don't care. I mean, you've seen what's happening with these parents that just join up in a group to try to get together and go in front of school boards. They're vilified, and they got police at school board meetings. What? So they'll circle the wagons. So if that doesn't work, then you go to legislatures and get things changed.
Yeah.
So Dan, let me ask you something. If somebody has say Mr. Pancake there, he or Tom, if they were part of a public school and they needed help getting something organized, or they wanted to find your book so they had more resources to be able to unify that, or even if I ever made the mistake and public schooled my kid, if anybody's trying to get that information or needs to talk to you for help or even consulting, where do they get this information from you? Because one, you've given so much information here in our conversation alone, and I know there's a ton more information out there and probably in your head that's not even mentioned so far in our conversation. Where can people go to find you? Where can they find your book? What do you suggest?
No problem. I'm on LinkedIn. And I know it's a weird last name, but you should be able to find me with part of those letters in my last name. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page under the first 5 minutes. That's where I put all my podcasts. I got a personal page too, but the book is on Amazon. If you type in first 5 minutes, it should come up in the first 5 or 6 searches that you get on there. My email is on LinkedIn. You can contact me with any questions you have. And like I said, I don't have a website or anything like that, but yeah, that's where you can go if you have questions for me. But again, I just, I try to go to these conferences, and I don't know, Tom, if you've been to some of these conferences with your business or any other guys going to these conferences, and a lot of times it's a bunch of BS. It's just something, either they're selling something, or it's stuff like, I heard this before. And that's the one thing I got frustrated with the conferences. Not only can I not be a speaker, I'm not allowed to be a speaker. I guess I don't have the rep, or I'm a small fish in a big pond or whatever. But I go to these conferences and it's the same stuff over and over again. I said, look, there's nothing new. I get it that the technology on the selling part is there, but what you're talking about, it's just over and over again. You're not saying anything new. And it's like,
the same thing.
Until you do, there's no reason, because I get invites all the time. Hey, come to this conference. Well, shoot, you got to pay for the conference itself, the airline travel, the hotel reservations, and you're out $1,000 to hear some crap from some guy that you're probably smarter than him anyways. And it's like, I've heard this before. Well, what am I learning here? I'm not learning anything. So at this point, if you're in that business, if you're in that industry, whether you're a teacher or, you're a safety, you're a school resource officer or something, if you don't know it by now, there's nothing new. There's nothing for you to do that. Just stay up on your own training in your own school, and talk to other people in that area, in that business. You don't have to go to some conference in California or Florida or wherever to learn something. If you need certification, that's one thing. I understand that's one thing. But if you're just going just to listen or to look at products, no, nothing out there that's anything new. So that's the frustrating part about these supposed conferences that pick up on this. And again, I
more symposium than conference.
Right, exactly. And that's why I like going on these podcasts, because I try to reach out, especially now to parents. I did at the beginning of this years ago with teachers, but teachers were telling me, look, I get what you're saying, but I got orders from up above, school board, superintendent, I can't do what you're doing. So I go to parents and say, look, you got to talk to your kids and find out what the heck's going on. This is not like the old days. Just drop them off and you're done. I'll pick you up later. No. You got to be involved more so, not only with their grades and their schooling, but with their safety. So I advocate that. And the other thing is, I don't know, Eric, we're running out of time, but I do want to say that the one thing I've run into over and over again are principals and people in authority that feel they need to go during a drill or during a real event to go help their kids, to go check if doors are locked, to make sure my teachers have the doors locked, to make sure the gunman isn't open. What are you doing? It's very hard for alpha personalities, and a principal has to have an alpha personality, to sit in a room by themselves, lock the door, and wait for the help to come. I can understand. I've had teachers, females especially, just bawling, but they're my kids. I got to go save them. No, you're not. You're not going to end up. You're not going to. This is not going to end well. Stay in your room, lock down, wait for the police. The good guys are coming. They are coming. It's going to take a while. It's going to feel like hours, but they're coming. Or you've got school resource officers. They're going. So the idea, I say, no matter what situation you're in, we talked, Eric, about a movie theater, restaurant, you own your family, you keep yourself safe first. Then you can help others. Don't be a hero. There's no reason for you a hero to do something, because you may not end well with that. If you got the training,
I guess I'm break out my black paint. Here we go. It's
let's say, Eric, if you have training, then you
pull my mask down
and you go. Other than
start
that,
painting my arms green, attaching leaves to my shoulders and stuff.
Yeah, most of us
die.
Yeah, most of us parents, people like me, don't have the military or the police officer training, things like that. So yeah, it makes perfect sense not to play hero and what have you. It's a dangerous world out there, and Dan, that's why I'm so glad you came on, because to me it's very important that dads like me, like Tom and Mr. Pancakes, we all learn the different things, not just in school, but situational, that we need to do what's going to be best for our kids and for us to stay around to be with our kids. I mean, Dan, thank you very much for being on. Mr. Pancakes, if somebody's looking for you, because you're a very opinionated person, obviously, where do people find you? If you could let them know as well.
Yeah. So, the normal place is pancakeswithdad.com. That's the most common place. You'll find all the social medias there. We got Facebook, Instagram, X. I do have a LinkedIn also on Truth Social. You can follow me on all those places. There's email spots as well to send emails, direct questions. There's plenty of resources on there for things like to do with your kid, for different ideas for traditions and fun things to do. There's plenty of kids books, coloring books, all kinds of stuff to download for free, buy kids books on Amazon, stuff like that, as well as one of the best ways to find a way to support what we do. It also supports Call with Dads and myself. Pancakes with Your Dad is to purchase some of our cool mugs or t-shirts or nonsense. It may be nonsense, but the money goes towards what we do. I don't take money off of it. I literally make zero money. I'm actually in debt, honestly, more than anything. But it does help, help buy my mic, help do stuff like that. So the way we get more information to you guys is by you guys purchasing stuff from us. It's one of our best ways. If anybody has noticed, I will say I do apologize for backing off. If you guys do actively follow the podcast and my social media stuff, if you haven't seen me on lately, I have been taking a break, just family as well as working on a few things for my own personal purposes. I will be back much more. Just give me time. Thank you.
And Tom, how about you? Where do people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on X. I try to focus on X mostly. At Earn Her Respect. At Earn Her Respect is my X handle. So you can go there and follow me, find all my content. There's a link at the top of the profile that you can follow to get on my email list to download some free materials that I offer. And to get any updates on books. I got a kid's book. I also have a nonfiction book coming out in the next 6 months, something like that. So keep an eye on there and appreciate the follow. Thanks, guys.
Good.
And obviously, Call with Dads. If you don't know how to spell Call with Dads, then there's some issues here. But callwithdads.com. We're on a lot of social medias. Everything we're under Call with Dads, and Call with Dads, we've started Homesor, which HOMESSOR.com, which is a homeschooling service to help bring courses either self-paced, virtually online, or in person. We are just bringing in the instructors. We're getting people to get their courses online. So visit back regularly because there'll be more stuff as time progresses. But Homesor will be the homeschooling place that you want to be. Dan, again, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Dan, if you can hold on,
Sure.
Thanks. Hold on one moment, Dan.
All right. Thanks, all of you.